So hi, my name is Ann Zaprazny of Great Sports Minds, and I am honored and humbled to be joined by George Mumford. Welcome, George.
Hi, how are you?
Good. I am so honored you're here. George does not know this. I first actually became a fan of his when I got his book, The Mindful Athlete. It is Secrets to Pure Performance, back in 2015 when it first came out. And I was like a kid in a candy shop when I saw he was the keynote speaker in October at the Applied Sports Psychology Conference in Portland. I was like, we have a legend in the house. And why do I call him a legend? George is a movement maker. He has worked with some of the most elite athletes, including Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, the Chicago Bulls, numerous college teams in the space of mindfulness. And he's actually known as the performance whisperer. So welcome, George.
Thank you. But I'm just so happy to be here and to be able to share some of my experience, strength, and hope.
I love it. You experience strength and hope. So George, right now we're in a time where I think people need hope. The
Yes.
Coronavirus, specifically, if we isolate athletes right now, for many, their season has been either postponed or canceled. And if they're seniors, they've lost their season. So it's challenging times. And so, use the word hope. So how do you bring hope? How do you help instill hope?
Yes. So how do you instill hope? Well, it's because from my own experience, just coming from feeling like a phoenix being reborn, the ashes, dealing with my own experience as an athlete who was injury prone and who got addicted to pain meds and then illegal drugs, and then being able to recover from that, and not just recover from that, but come back from a life that was devastatingly challenging and stressful and chaotic. That same process that I used to find myself and to get from survival mode into growth mode or into thriving, that how would I not have hope, having come through what most people don't go through. So I was able to turn, as you will, if we use the Hasidic tradition of knowing evil, knowing all of the bad stuff, and turning from it and moving towards the light, moving towards grace and ease, moving towards pursuing excellence and wisdom. And so the best way for me to keep that is to share it with other people. Say, well, this is how I did it. So if it worked for me, I know it will work for you. And I had to start out with this idea of hope and optimism. We know that from research. That is what they call positive genius, that if you're in a positive mind state, then your cognitive function, your ability to see, think, and feel in ways that enhance our latent abilities, which we have plenty of. We have a lot of birth gifts that we haven't opened. And so we have access to that when we're in this hopeful frame of mind. And so we come at life as an adventure, as a journey, and as not something to be tolerated, but something to be lived. So it's like, how can we be more fully alive and have a high quality of life, which to me is happiness and joy and being loving, having relationships. But whenever we do something, that we can bring the passion to this excitement, this enthusiasm to whatever we do. That's happiness is a choice. And so why wouldn't I be hopeful when I know I am wired for success? I have birth gifts that I haven't opened yet, that I open, that allow me to express more of my potentiality. And I would say it's this time and this stress and this chaos that is the perfect time for us to look within and to be who we're supposed to be. So that's why I'm hopeful.
I love those words.
This is amazing life. I've been through all that. I have more enthusiasm and excitement about life than I ever had, in spite of all the things that are going on, because to me, it's just on steroids. It's always this way. We die, we grow old, we get sick. That happens. It's just going to happen. It happens. And the question is, are we going to relate to it in a way that keeps us being who we say we are, living our core values, being loving, being present for life, because that's the only way you can live and perform, because it's about performance. Performance is not just performing on a stage, but it's also it's you can change the word performance and put experience in it. We want experience, as Joseph Campbell said, of being fully alive.
Pretty powerful, very powerful.
Yes, and so that's where I'm coming from. So the hope comes from my experience, but all of the teachings say the same thing. All of the spiritual teachings, all of my experience is about being hopeful and seeing the glass as half full, not half empty. Talk about it in my book. It's like, this is what Einstein said: we got to decide whether this is friendly or unfriendly universe. And if we decide it's a friendly universe, then we will use all our power, resources, our mental acuity, our ability to see clearly and to make wise decisions. We'll use that to live in alignment with how things are. And when we live in alignment with how things are, we not only discover ourselves, but we experience the joy of being alive.
So if I were a 16-year-old athlete, which I was many, many years ago,
Right.
and I'm living in these times right now, and I'm struggling with finding the joy, and I'm
Right.
struggling to just stay positive, how might mindfulness help me? And probably before we even answer that, what was your definition of mindfulness?
Yeah. So mindfulness is one of these topics that is really challenging to talk about, because if you talk about it, sometimes I use the metaphor of a mirror. So it's mirror mind. It just reflects what's in front of it. And so most of our typical way of observing experience is to see things based on what we already know. And we just look at things. And so we get a very short time of space and time where we see something clearly, see it fresh and new. And then as soon as we see it, we label it. And then there's this infusion of self-interest, of associative thought. Oh, I remember the last time this happened, or abstract thinking. Okay, this is what it means for the future. And we embellish it with all of this clutter, where it's like having a mirror and then there's dust on the mirror. So you can't really, whatever it's reflected is going to be, whether it's dust or whether it's paint, it's going to prevent us from seeing what's really there. And mindfulness is all about a simple process of being mindful of the time. So there's mindfulness, being mindful, which means pay attention, be aware. But then you have to have some kind of information. So mindfulness by itself is not enough. We need some information, some intellect. We need some knowing of what it is we're looking for. So be mindful of the time. Be mindful of how you are listening. Be mindful of how you speak. So mindfulness by itself is not enough, but it usually involves something that we're doing where we're paying attention and we're letting, it's like living in that sense of wonder where we're letting what is in front of us speak to us in its own language, instead of us interrupting or interfering with what's happening. So why is this important? Well, because if we don't see clearly, then we won't behave clearly, or our performance is going to be affected, because we can't see what's going on. How can we respond to what we don't see? And to the degree that we can see clearly and see uncritically, or not trying to push it or pull it away, by being still, we can see what we need to see. And when we see what we need to see, when we create space between stimulus and response, we have time to really think about, okay, so what's the right choice? So we think about it even beforehand. If I do this, then that's going to happen. That's not in alignment with what I say I want to do or where I want to go, then that's not to be done. So it's mindfulness of what we're doing, but also mindfulness of when we make the wrong choice. How do we reflect on it so that we can, the next time we encounter that situation, we can make a choice that's in alignment with the friendly universe. This is how things work. So if I jump up, I don't have to believe in gravity, but I'm coming down. So and I may not like the fact that I can't stay up there, but that's a choice. Okay, you either deal with that and have peace of mind, or you just keep fighting gravity. So it's that simple. So it's really a way of observing experience. But I would say the main thing is to be not looking out there so much as looking inside and say, well, how do I feel? Who am I? And how am I being myself? Am I being who I say I want to be? Am I feeling more alive because I'm being more myself and not doing what other people want me to do? Or not so much want, but the universe has a way of seeing us, or people might want us to be a certain way or think of us in a certain way, but we get to choose who we want to be. It's an inside job. But it takes courage to know yourself, to know what you like, what you don't like, to know what you're really interested in, what you're not interested in, so that you're not just being part of the herd without really being clear about who you are and how you really feel, and why you're here. Because speaking for myself, I'm unique. I have God doesn't make junk. I have a masterpiece, but it's my responsibility to be still and know, so that I can chip away to let that masterpiece out. And when I know who I am, or what resonates with me, then I can come from the inside out. And when I do that, then I don't have to worry about being like Mike or being like Judy or anybody else. I just got to be me. And that's an inside job, but I have to be still and know. So this time is a perfect time to be still and think about, we have plenty of time to think about, well, why am I here? Or who do I want to be? We get to decide.
So your words, be still and know. Be
Yes.
still and know. So again, if I'm a 16, 17, 18-year-old athlete who's used to go, 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 that those words, be still and know. And I loved what you said, we have a stimuli. Can we create space between the stimuli and the response?
Yes.
Right. So if we really like almost personalize it to like that 16-year-old athlete.
Yeah. So it's like just really sitting here. It's like, let's just take what's going on. So let's assuming they're listening and they're watching this. So it's like being mindful of, what are you doing? Are you listening to what's being said as if it's being said for the first time? Or are you listening to it and comparing it to what you already know? Or what you already think? Or you're worried about, okay, but it doesn't help me. How do I do this? If you're looking for me to take that pressure off of you, it's not gonna happen. You have to do it. Because I could say something, but you get to choose whether you hear it or you don't hear it. And when you don't hear it, if you're in survival mode, you're not going to hear what I'm saying, because you're cut off from yourself and from the environment. So the idea is to open up, but that takes some courage. That takes trust to open up and say, okay, let me listen to George and see what he's saying and see if it's true. So can I see that when I'm listening, I'm actually fidgety? Or why am I fidgety? Maybe the body wanting to move and to do things has more to do with my mind being unsettled rather than my body being unsettled. So calm mind, calm body. So can I just sit still? Just really, instead of just doing or reacting to things, can I respond to things by consciously making a choice on what I focus on, how I behave, how I think? So those are really important. And so it's nice to have a role model. I had role models when I was growing up. You're talking about basketball. I grew up in Boston with the Celtics, so there's certain players, but I also like Jerry West and Elgin Baylor, players from other teams, because there was something about them that resonated with me. So even though they played for LA, I still liked them, but I could model myself or emulate what I liked about them. It might be a toughness. It might be uh, an ability, a competence level. Jerry West being really able to shoot. Elgin Baylor having being so fluid and so willing to make shots in a variety of ways, because he trained himself and he would just see he was just playing in flow. He was just seeing whatever was there, and then he'd work with it. And so to me, that's the challenge of life, isn't it? Is when things come to us, can we move with it? Can we flow with it in a way where we're accepting what's there, but we're able to make choices that are consistent? And so for any age, especially for youngsters, them understanding that they are already a masterpiece, and it's really, if you're reacting, then that's your reactions, but you can change those reactions if you don't like it. But it requires an ability to observe ourselves, and then to make choices or to make changes in the midst of the present moment. And so even if we feel uncomfortable because we're not able to sit still, even if we sit still, even though if it's uncomfortable, at some point we'll relax into the stillness, we'll relax into just being here. But it's being able to create that space to be uncomfortable so that we actually get comfortable with being uncomfortable.
So George, when you first start working with an elite athlete, how receptive and ready are they to be your student? And I have a quote. I have your business card, right? And it kind of makes me emotional a little bit, because it's a quote from Kobe that says, "George helped me understand the art of mindfulness, to be neither distracted or focused, rigid or flexible, passive or aggressive. I learned just to be." Right.
Yes.
So what's the journey for an athlete who maybe has not gone inward, has not learned to be still, to then be able to have that journey and to be able to choose their response?
Yeah. So it's just recognition. And I just want to shout out that, obviously I was really close to Kobe, and it was a big loss for, and just hearing the word, the late and great Kobe Bryant, that's very interesting, in the sense that I really didn't expect to hear that phrase
No, too
at
early.
this time.
Too
But at the
early.
same time, he's living on, and people are interested in the Mamba mentality and what he represents. And so when we think about, well, what's possible, so how do we have to understand that Kobe is just like us. So when you ask me about working with elite athletes, I don't see people as, I see everybody as an elite athlete or an elite human being, right? So it's the same. Is how do I relate to them? How can I help them be who they are? And how can I start off by seeing them as they are now, and then getting clear or having a conversation about, well, what do you want? And if you want this, then you have to be this.
And
So
George, does that conversation really help athletes who perhaps lack emotional control, where they're getting so angry either at themselves or their
that's right.
teammates around mistakes?
Yes. So we're talking about emotional intelligence here, just really being clear about, why am I angry? And if I'm angry and I'm lashing out, is that helpful? So it's workability is is the operative term. If it's helpful or workable, then to do it. If it's not, then you got to change what you're doing. So when you are reacting to someone, that means there's something inside of you have to attend to, make peace with, or at least create space and say, okay, I'm reacting. I don't want to. So this time I'm not going to react, but I need to just think about, well, how do I want to act versus react? So if we feel like somebody is being disrespectful to us or hating on us, I'll use that word, then the question is, what choices do we have? And so when we can sit back and say, okay, if I relate to it this way, this is what's going to happen. If I relate to it that way, this is what's going to happen. So why can't I be like Kobe during there's a scene of him where he's is against the Celtics during the finals, and he's sitting on the bench with Chris Rock, and somebody keeps talking to him, and Kobe just stays focused on the game. He just doesn't let it in. That's what it is. It's like, don't let it in. It won't get in unless you let it in. You start to understand that you have control. You can choose not to react. But when you're reacting, that's a choice, even though it's an unconscious choice. So we start getting conscious about, how are we thinking? How are we seeing? How are we feeling? And that if we need to align ourselves with what is helpful. That's why I wrote my book, The Mindful Athlete, and there's other books out there. It's the training you do. It's like, okay, the first thing you got to do is just be aware of how you're feeling, and then managing that and just feeling it. So even when you have anger or frustration, you can be in the head and the story, and then blaming or denying. That's usually a couple of things that are happening, instead of just feeling what it feels like in your body, like it's tightness in the chest, or just be with the feeling, just breathe with it, be mindful of it, and keep it on the level of sensation, instead of being in a story about it. And then you have more of an opportunity to not react to stuff. And then you
Would
can start
you
to explore what that feels like. Like even now, just me talking about it, I can feel that tension in my chest. And so it's an idea of, can I just be with it, breathe with it? Because the first impulse is, this is a nervous system. It's not personal. If it's pleasant, we want more. If it's unpleasant, we push it away. And if it's neither, we space out. So it's like, okay, so can I just be aware of it, breathe with it, feel it, and just make space for it, and just to feel it so that we're not reacting. So we start to create that space between what we observe and the reactivity to it, so that we start to get clear about how we're being.
And would you apply almost the same approach when the feeling is terrific self-doubt?
Yes, yes, that's just a story. It's not real. It's not reality. It's a story. That's why the hope and optimism, when you're in a positive mind state and you focus on what you can do and how exciting you are, and the fact that you have the ability and you feel happy, you can't feel the doubt. There's no space for the doubt. And so
Right.
when you doubt yourself, you just say, okay, I can't do this. And so instead of just saying, I'm never going to do it, you approach the doubt. Okay, doubt is there. So how do I deal with doubt? By getting more information, by creating understanding, information about it. Because the doubt is saying you don't know enough. Ask more questions, do more study, reflect more, see who you can emulate that's able to do what you want to do. Does that make sense? And so
Yeah.
it gets to a point of, you got to be a learner. It's about being a learner, just learning for learning's sake. And you're just like a little kid learning how to walk. You don't go and ask for a dissertation on how to walk. You just got to try to walk. And you don't worry about people seeing you fall. You just do what you got to do. And so we have
Right.
to have that mindset of being a learner. And how do I got to crawl before I can walk, before I can run. So maybe I just got to get clear about what it takes to get to where I want to get to, and resolve myself to go through the discomfort and the making the mistakes that are actually feedback that's telling me what I need to change. So the idea is to make more mistakes quicker so you can learn faster. That's the competitive edge, is learning faster and understanding. But what do you got to learn first is who you are, or who you want to be, and how you are being, so that if it's not in alignment with what you say you want to do, then you have to change the being. And you change the being by getting clear about your thoughts, your behaviors. You start watching your behaviors. So Gandhi said, your beliefs become your thoughts. Your thoughts, this is my book, your thoughts become your words become your actions become your habits become your values become your destiny. So if your destiny is to be a champion, and then you got to believe that it's possible for you to be a champion. You have to have thoughts that are consistent with that. You have to speak, self-talk, and how you communicate has to be consistent with that. Your actions have to be consistent with that. And then it'll be a habit. And then the habit will be a reflection of your values. So that's an equation. So you can say, my value is to be tough-minded. Okay, so then that equation. So the mindfulness, being mindful of what it takes, being mindful of what I'm doing versus what I want to do, so that there's immediate feedback, so that we can keep adapting, adjusting, and learning from mistakes. So it's error correction, which is a whole part of it. Mistakes are something that we make when we get out of comfort zone, when we're learning. A big part of learning is trial and error. And we
So,
have to embrace it without losing confidence, because we make a mistake and then we evaluate who we are, rather than saying, no, that's just a process. That's not who we are. That's just part of what happened. That's an event. That's not who you are. But we identify with it. So when you're mindful and you realize, oh, I'm identifying with the mistake, then you can say, okay, if that's not helpful, then how do I not identify with it? And that's the practice. Once you have to keep doing it, and you keep doing it, then at some point, okay, I don't have to do this. So that's why we write books, we read books, we talk to people, we listen to podcasts like this, and we keep reflecting on, well, how do I do this? The how to, rather than the why. We focus on the how.
lots of wisdom there. Lots of wisdom there, George. I'm like, I could keep talking to you for hours. You know that,
Yes.
right?
So I'm giving it up today, but I have no idea what's going to come out, but I know it's going to be good.
It's good. It's good. So here's a question. I always say, if I knew what I know today as an athlete years ago, my
Right.
journey might have been different.
Yes.
Right. So if you had the wisdom you have today and you imparted it to a younger athlete and they embodied it, how do you think their journey and their enjoyment and joy of sport would be?
It would be better because I feel like what I'm doing, I was standing on the shoulders of giants, people that came before me. And so it's just respecting. And how could it be different? It could be a lot different because they have access to the resources, and it could be really wonderful. I mean, that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And that's why I want to get them. My next book will be for younger folks because I want to get them earlier so that they realize that they have a certain level of self-agency. What I mean by that is they have power. They can choose. They have freedom and power of choice, even though within the context of the adults they're around, but also the self-agency and the self-worth that, like God doesn't make junk. I got a
I love that.
masterpiece.
God doesn't make junk.
Yeah. And so, but it's how we are behaving that's determining our experience. So if I understand that maybe I have to change the way I'm seeing things, my beliefs, then everything else changes. And if I can believe that I'm wired for success, or what Malcolm Maltz calls the automatic success mechanism. There's a way of relating to ourselves, but it's how we see ourselves that's going to determine who we become. So
Powerful.
it's just really understanding. So for a young person, just realizing that you got to go back to where you were when you learned how to walk. You got to get back to that learning and that seeking wisdom, or that joyful journey of discovery, self-discovery, but how the universe works so that you can align yourself with it. And so that's where the happiness, that's where the energy, the aliveness comes from, when we're being present for ourselves and being on purpose.
I love that you use that example because I often will show a video clip of an infant falling down,
Yes,
learning to
yes,
walk, and
yes.
they just get up. They don't
So,
judge it. They're happy. They
right.
fall, they get up. They fall, they get
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. So the whole thing is about learning. So I've been in recovery 35 and a half years, and I've averaged over a book a week over that time, not to mention all the other stuff. And as much as I know there's a lot more I don't know, but the main focus is on me understanding who I am and who I am being. But at the same time, there's all this information and there's all of this support for us to be amazing.
Well, you're amazing, my friend. I am so honored that you spent time with us today. I want to just do a shout out and a plug for your online course. So, can you tell us a little bit about your online
Yes.
course?
So the Mindful Athlete Secrets to Pure Performance, I have an online course, and you can go to my website, georgemumford.com. And that course is interesting because I launched it, I want to say not quite a year ago. But what I'm doing now is going to be a relaunch, and what I'm going to have is 8-week segments. So it's like my book. It breaks down, the 5 spiritual superpowers, and so people can join that. And so there's videos and exercises that people will do on their own. But I think starting in April, I think it's April 16th might be the day. But if you go to my website, it'll tell you we'll have intensive like 8-week programs. So people will be doing the course, I'll be doing the course, and then once a week we'll have Q&A and we'll
Where you
talk
go
about it.
live.
But it's
Yeah, to
really
enrich it.
more about how to do these things we're talking about in a virtual community, but also just being able to understand how to be yourself, how to discover yourself, all the things that I'm talking about. You need those spiritual powers, and if you can master those. So that course is not just a course for 8 weeks, it's a course for life. So you have access to it for your life. And for me, like I wrote my book, The Mindful Athlete, I read it 40 times. And so these are meditations, these are reflections, these are tools to help us be more mindful, to make the right effort, to be able to focus or concentrate, to be able to acquire wisdom and insight, because that's the antidote to ignorance, which is a cause of suffering, and to cultivate more trust and faith so that we're able to walk through that anxiety that we're going to experience, or the uncertainty. And right now we're in uncertainty, but it's because it's in our face. But it's always uncertain. Things are always uncertain. But now it's in our face. So we have this opportunity this course to be dealing with yourself or knowing yourself and the process with other people, but also in a process that's been proven that I've used and continue to use in my own discovery, so people can have that more have a more happy, joyful existence, no matter, regardless of what you want to do. If you want to be a doctor, lawyer, Indian chief, or whatever, that you have to learn how to be who you are, and this is part of the process. And then it's fundamental. It's a way of grounding and us just really taking, especially everybody, but especially young folks, to realize that yes, you have worth and you have agency. You can make choices, and if you don't like your life, you can do something about it.
Really powerful close. You have worth. If you don't like where your life is going, you have the ability to make choices and change it. So
Yes,
powerful.
yes, and that's anxiety producing, because that means we are responsible, and it's no one else. We can't blame it on people, places, and things. It's an inside
We
job.
own it, right? We own
We
the
own it.
journey.
Be responsible. No blame. No excuses. I am responsible for my happiness
Love it.
and for the opposite, my grief. That's on me.
Well, George, it's been my honor. Thank you so much for spending time with us, sharing your wisdom, and I look forward to staying connected with you.